She means I didn't quit piano lessons. That's all she means. I never quit piano lessons. And
I quit piano lessons because I wanted to be a performer. Okay, I was an artist. I couldn't memorize Suzuki.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of the TF Cast. I'm your host, Willis Stout.
Hey, Grum here. Today is January 11th here in the solarium.
And I am your host, Jacob Bases. Today with us, we have Jenny and Bethany of the Ericksons, who are coming to us for their show out at the St. Peter Arts Center on the 11th of February. Jenny and Bethany, could you please just tell us a little bit about what you do and what it's going to be like at the show on the 11th?
Yeah. I'm Jenny Kaepernick of the Ericksons. We're sisters. Can start there. And we've been playing music together in this format since about 2008, I'll say. And we have a show coming up at the St. Peter Arts Center. For quite a few years, we were doing like a Valentine's Day annual show at the Arts Center. And then through COVID, we haven't done that show, obviously, and this will be our first Valentine's Day weekend coming back to play at the Arts Center. So we're excited about that.
Was that just like a coincidence that lined up there, or are we just big Valentine's Day fans?
I wouldn't say big Valentine's Day fans.
No.
I don't know. It's just the middle of the winter, you know, and there isn't much going on, at least for us. And so it started out as a thought of a way to just bring people together and have a nice show in the dead of the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned it happened before at the Arts Center, St. Peter, kind of like this, so we're returning to a regular show. How long had it been happening before? How long have you guys been doing this kind of show?
I'm guessing we probably did 3 before COVID.
Okay.
Maybe more than that, I
Maybe
would say.
4.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know some of our history?
Yes,
Is that a
love
segue?
Yeah.
So it was probably like the early 2000s when I started writing music, and then Jenny started writing music, and then we Jenny was teaching in Brooklyn, New York, and I moved out there and in 2006. So that's when we just like started playing music all the time, all the time. And then we started playing out. We would just go to the same open mic every week. And literally that's where we learned how to perform, or how you even get up on a stage and stand there with your guitar. You know, I mean, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lived like,
Wait.
yeah.
I was gonna say, so you've been sisters, but like you just came together to start performing at that period of time. It wasn't like a musical upbringing.
It was definitely a musical upbringing where like I, from a very young age, knew that I loved singing and played other instruments. But I think for as long as I can remember, I remember wanting to sing in front of people.
Oh.
And I think Bethany
I never had that desire.
No. But you had more of a traditional music training, playing the piano.
She means I didn't quit piano lessons. That's all she means. I never quit piano lessons. And
I quit piano lessons because I wanted to be a
traditional
performer. Okay, I was an artist. I couldn't memorize Suzuki.
No, I totally understand that. I quit piano lessons when I was a kid too, and then I took like 4 music lessons when I was an adult. And my teacher was like, "Okay, you should go play now." And I was like, "You can just go."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. Like, I remember my mom signed me up for guitar lessons then in high school. And I remember going to like we grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and going to the local music place and going into a little room with this like guy playing guitar. And I think I went twice. I was like, I don't think I need to do this either. So just Not that, I mean, I'm sure I could have benefited from that experience, but I do remember in 5th grade, I wrote a letter to Shawn Colvin. She's like incredible folk musician that's been around since the 90s. And I wrote her a letter, and then my dad brought me to her show in Madison. And I was just thinking of this recently. Like, I didn't grow up being like, I'm gonna do this when I grow up, or I'm gonna study this or do. I just wanted to be Shawn Colvin. Like, I really did. And
Yeah.
since being at her show as like a small child. So anyway,
Yeah, so I think then what happened in like 2006 and on, that's when more of just like the creative process took over, where it was like just writing so many songs and then coming together and figuring out what the song was, finishing song, so
Mhm.
then it was just this huge kind of creative time. So we recorded our first album in Brooklyn, I think in 2008.
Yeah. And we would, this open mic, it was called Bar 4, and it was avenues away from our apartment, and we would like trudge there with our guitars. And you get there and you sign up and you just wait for them to call your name. So it was like sometimes it was 1:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and you're just like waiting to get up there because it became a very popular open mic in New York City. So people would come to this. But I think luckily we started as it was gaining popularity, but we really would just sit there like get home at 3 a.m. after playing our set. But it was this time of everybody who got up to play. I will not say everybody, but people got up to play and they were like really good, and really inspiring. And it was a time where then we'd go back to our apartment and just write more. And
Yeah. I was just going to say, and you kind of like, no matter if you liked what you saw or not, you kind of learned something from like everybody you saw play, because of the array and like, that was weird or that was, why'd they do that or how'd they do, so I think it was like a huge learning process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also run an open mic here at the Wine Cafe, and my favorite part is exactly what you said. Like even someone who's brand new has never done it before, it's really inspiring, and it's also cool to see people just like trying things they wouldn't try like on a big stage.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I really appreciate that too. Were you did Was there any evolution of the music, or has it been kind of a similar style since the beginning?
I would say definitely evolution. Um, but I mean, but also a similar style,
Yeah.
and also extremely similar like songwriting process, which I think is kind of the tie throughout, like I still approach songwriting the way I approached it back then.
Yeah.
And what's that like?
I mean, for me, it's just like as honestly as possible and with few expectations, because anything outside of those two things, it's not gonna go, or it's probably not gonna be that good. So yeah, I don't know, just with like a lot of just, I mean, I guess if I'm gonna write a song, I'll just like sit down with the guitar and just like and start playing and
Okay.
kind of just see what I hear.
Do you like find the words and the music and kind of piece it together that way?
Yeah.
Low expectations and
Yeah.
Honesty.
and honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I was just going to say, and freedom, and getting into that space with the music. But I don't think either of us have ever written a song where we had these like lyrics we want to say and put them to music. It's always the music coming first. And then words come. And we don't write together, but we come to each other with rough drafts of songs, and then it kind of turns into something together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So had you each played individually on your own before, or do you kind of just start playing together?
We kind of just started playing together.
Yeah,
Okay,
we did. Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
So then you've been playing together since like 2008-ish, she says, or a little before that?
Six-ish, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we got like a little under 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
wow. And
That's
it
awesome.
it really came out of like our whole childhood. Music was like the biggest thing.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true.
It just was like our family connected over music, but like sharing new music. Our dad was a huge music head, so he was always bringing home new music that he found, just like
Yeah, what kind of music
fresh
was playing in the house
CDs.
while you were growing up?
A lot of like, Sean Colvin, who I mentioned already, Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. What do you remember?
John Hyatt.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Chick Corea right now. Is that jazz? Is that
Definitely.
jazz?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I got a little vinyl.
Would that be jazz though? No,
Yeah.
Warren Zevon. Just so like I
So
remember like
much.
sitting and just like alphabetizing CDs. It was just like a huge part of something it was like a value system, where even at dinner it was like, what CD are we going to put in while we're eating dinner? Or I would like fall asleep at night listening to whatever under the floorboards that like my dad was listening to doing the dishes, or like just such a intense part or vibrant part of our upbringing. So I think music was always something we were connected around, and then it made sense. I think like Bethany's a little older than me, so she would come back from college and give me gifts of like songs she learned, like Ani DeFranco songs she learned in her dorm room from somebody else, and then I would learn that kind of a thing where it's like all this dialogue around music and covers. And I was like going through old boxes the other day, and I found all of these song sheets of just like kind of dumb songs, but like covers that we were just learning. For me, it was just learning to play guitar through playing all these covers. But then I think it was around 2006 that Bethany really started writing. I started writing later.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was very natural to start playing together, comfortable.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You've so far the story that we've heard has all taken place basically in New York. How
Yeah.
did y'all both manage to be here together in Minnesota, also playing at the Arts Center?
Love. Oh.
So what happened was, let's see, we recorded our first album in 2008. Then we started touring. So we booked a tour down the East Coast. Okay. Yeah. So then we toured the East Coast. Then, okay, if you say love, then I met my now husband. And just kind of knew, I mean, we knew New York wasn't like a long-term home type thing. I mean, it was natural for me to come back to the Midwest and come back to Minnesota. Jenny found her way back like 6 months after I did. And then shortly after that, maybe 2010, we recorded our second album in Madison, Wisconsin. With a sound engineer named Bo Sorensen, who we were really lucky to meet and just awesome to work with. And we had our like childhood neighbor play bass. I mean, it was just like a really fun, awesome
Yeah.
collection of people on that album. Then we started touring in the Midwest. Oh, then we did 2 West Coast tours. We just started booking tours. So we were just,
Cool.
yeah, we were just going
Yeah.
like full time
Mm-hmm.
for quite a few years then. And then we recorded a third album at April Base. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just kept touring. and then we recorded our fourth album. So we just kept recording and touring.
Yeah.
That's really where I jumped in, because in preparation for the podcast, I just listened to "Take Me Home" like quite a few times.
Bring Me
in a row.
Home.
Bring Me
Yeah.
Home. I'm sorry. That's how fresh it is for me.
Yeah.
And it going from like just guitar music to hearing like this kind of like airy. There's a lot of synthesizers and other kinds of how did you end up there? Are those the tools that you were touring with and using on stage, or was that a place that you went in the studio?
It was definitely both. We have this very small keyboard that we got from our dear friend Kimmy's uncle. One of those things, where it's like somebody's uncle.
That is something I think important to note about us is we're very scrappy. Like in anything, it's like we still play this little Casio keyboard that we got from our friend Kimmy's uncle. And it's like our song Animal that we played tonight acoustically. There's just like a drum beat from that keyboard on that side, like starts that song. But anyway, so we use
that keyboard has great beats. So we were like using those, and I think just with my piano background, I don't know, I was just like writing really simple stuff. Like you can write gorgeous stuff with like simple chords, like I'm not a great piano player at all.
But you stayed in piano lessons.
I continued.
Classically trained.
Classically trained. Yes.
So it was like I was writing things on that small keyboard, and and then in the studio we could just kind of do. What did we even use in the studio? I can't. We used
Probably the DX7.
I don't know.
But
We used
I
that
think
keyboard.
I think we got lucky in some relationships too, where meeting this sound engineer, Bo Sorensen, who's just become a friend. He has a way with working, I think, with all musicians, and I'd say started at Smart Studios, but then when we recorded at April Base in Eau Claire or in Fall Creek, he really there was just a lot available, and we had a couple other musicians that were in the space with us, and it was really comfortable. We stayed there for some days, and we could kind of explore. So maybe we didn't have a piano part or a synth part on a certain song coming in, but we had that space and time in that studio experience to just like have fun, which was, I think, not always the case when you're thinking about time and money and renting a place and all these things and coming in ready. It was like he provided that, and that's kind of what we need as people and musicians. And so there's some exploring within developing the song, working with others.
And another thing is, like she writes, I would say, all of the harmonies, and can write like any harmony. Like you could sing anything, and she could write like 10 different harmonies. I cannot do that. But in a way, like I could like hear a song and come up with something like really simple on the keyboard. That is kind of its own harmony, I guess. But so yeah, I think kind of you're like you said, just sort of being more experimental. But also maybe approaching that fourth album in like a poppier way.
Yeah.
Was fun at that time.
You mentioned you did a lot of touring, it sounds like. What was the like structure of that? Or were you part of a group, or were you touring as an independent act and like kind of doing a lot of that yourself? How's that happening?
So much ourself.
Oh, cool.
And getting to that point where we would build enough of a at least local following, like in the Twin Cities, or getting connected with the Current, where we were playing shows through 89.3, things like that, where then we could send that out to a place out west, and they'd be like, oh, okay, they're legit, we'll book them. But it was we've never worked with a booker. We've mostly just toured, the two of us, we've toured with some other people on and off, but we keep it pretty tight. Yeah.
I mean, we've done some pretty random stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any fun stories?
I was thinking of one, honestly, today. Where was that place? So many,
Yeah.
like so many.
Yeah.
But there was that place. I think this might take the cake. It was in, was it in Tennessee? It was like in the mountains somewhere.
It was.
And it like felt just touring as two women. That it felt like borderline dangerous. It was in this. What
It was
that
Johnson
town?
City, Tennessee.
Johnson City, Tennessee. And it was this little like acoustic cafe that people go to and play. But it was like the most random. The whole way driving there, I think we'd come from somewhere that was more of like okay, this is a show and a place and a venue. And then we get there and it's like, what is happening? Like, what? I just remember like this. It was like this guy sitting at the bar and everyone with just like thick Southern drawl, and he was like, "I'm cool with you two," like insinuating we're in a relationship. I was just like, "What is happening here? I'm cool with you two." Like, oh, we're so glad, sir. So things like that. I mean, yeah.
Because really, like, if you're the way we approached it was like, so if we wanted to go from Seattle to Los Angeles, there's there's a lot of miles to cover. So we would just kind of see like, okay, what's in between there? Who do we know, first of all? Because then you can, if you have someone to stay with, that's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we wound up in Johnson City. That was not like a destination. That was
And I
like,
think-
oh yeah, there.
I think ultimately, like what we came to part of what was helpful was having small children. But because the Twin Cities and surrounding area, Mankato, all these places are very vibrant music places, we just kind of started to keep it more regional, where we knew, it was going to be a good show, where we had a following, where we had kind of knew what to expect. And as we, I think, became more experienced performers, we realized that saying no or not doing everything, it's like starting anything when we're very young, and it's like, we'll go anywhere. We'll do, maybe this is our chance. Like,
Yeah.
just so that idealism that fades with age, I think is actually really great and really freeing, where now we kind of just do what we want, which feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do those tours look like now? You mentioned a little more regional. You're kind of
Yeah.
going to.
So we really, I mean, you'd have to say we've taken some years off.
It's sort of like masked with COVID, but
Yeah,
it
that's
wasn't
true.
COVID. It was like we took some years off.
The last album was 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we toured steadily through, I would say 2016, 2017, around there.
Okay.
And then I think naturally and for good reason have just sort of been hibernating in a way,
Doing other things.
doing a lot of other things. But feeling at a point of some newness and a fresh start and possible recordings and
Sure, that was
touring again.
my next question. Was COVID like a creative time, or was it like a?
Yeah.
I would say I feel like I've just been dedicated to other things for some years, and because to write, you need to like sit down, and get at least for me, I don't have like a separate music space where my stuff is always out, and I can, so you got to get it out, you got to sit yourself down and make time for that. So I've just been making time for other things, but along the way, somehow there are new songs. So I've apparently made some time for, writing, and Jenny's got new songs. So Yeah, we're gonna record something in the near future.
Mhm.
Because anyway, I think when we're at our best, it's generally like the simplest. I don't know. I think some
Mhm.
of the new songs we've written are just like really simple and beautiful. So I think if we dedicated ourselves to getting them down and making an album, it'd be pretty sweet.
Has any of that stuff
Mhm.
come out in performances yet? Like, is there any
Yeah.
chances that people might hear some of that on the 11th?
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cool. That sounds
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you think so then it sounds like no big tours in the works currently, but like what do you see for maybe traveling like that album if it were to come together? What do you look at when you're considering what to do with it? Would you kind of book some shows around the area?
Just
or-
straight back to Johnson City,
Right, just-
Tennessee. It's just like
Right there.
just
Love it.
straight back there.
Or I think
Create that moment.
I'm thinking of Sprinkles. Do you remember Sprinkles? We played at this place called Sprinkles in Olympia, Washington. And it was insane. I mean, I think it was a cupcake shop. You know? And then there was that other band that I mean, you just, if you go out there, you're
This band was like they opened, I guess. I guess they opened, but it was like to me, I was almost like, are they lost children? Like, should I call? Because we were probably like 24 and they were much younger than us. And it was just kind of this like someone was on the floor with no shoes, like hitting a tambourine. I was like, this feels, is everybody safe? Like, where are they going next? That was maybe the trippiest like
yes.
time for sure. So not that. We wouldn't
No.
do that.
No.
I think if we recorded something and we felt really good about it, like it came together really well and we were proud of it, and then I think we would I don't know, we would try to promote it, maybe
Mhm.
we'd try and get back in touch with the Current if
Yeah.
maybe they would remember us. I don't know. You know what I mean? But just get in touch with some media outlets, I guess, and see
Mhm.
if we could do a few kind of media spots. Maybe get
Yeah.
in touch with you guys.
well,
like
I was asking in part because it sounds like you've done a lot of traveling and
Yeah.
playing out and stuff, and I know a lot of our audiences probably not quite as experienced in playing out live or like with what to do once you've got your album recorded. So
Mhm.
if
Well,
you have
then
any
actually to speak to it, if
Yeah.
you think people would be interested, you can easily set up a Midwest tour, like a solid Midwest tour.
Yeah.
And what we would do is just like look at look at some key cities within the Midwest.
Well, and I think it's helpful to know people. I think we know just through life experience people in a lot of key cities where we can
Mhm.
ask.
But also if you just thought Iowa City, the Twin Cities, La Crosse, and made some
Yeah.
kind of route that made sense. I think there's I mean there are great spots in the Midwest and you wouldn't have to go nuts, like no sprinkles,
There's
no
way better spots now than there was when we were starting to tour, I would say,
Is that
too.
true?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of how like the root note has evolved, or just these, I feel like people almost kind of like almost like our generation, I'll say, coming to age where like it's like you guys doing this, or things like this happening, where I think a lot of our touring in 2010, 2011, 2012 was like, it kind of felt like you're like fighting the man a little bit, where it's like you're trying to get into these places and it's some guy on a phone, or it's it felt very hard, especially as a woman, where it doesn't feel that way anymore. And I know it, there are all of these things still at play, but I feel like there's a more openness and more I guess more openness
Hmm.
with art and with I guess that's the way I see it. I don't know if a young musician coming up that's doing their first album would feel that way. Maybe I'm saying that because we've gotten some good connections along the way, but
Hmm.
just small things like the more I think all of that, like pounding the pavement, is that the term, and playing all of these shows, some of which are shitty, come around to like, then we're connected with the first staff booker, and then he says, do you want to open for this band at the Cedar? And then we're like opening and it's a sold out. We opened for that band Boy
Oh yeah.
from I can't remember where they're from, maybe Germany. But it was just like a sold out Cedar, and it's not our show, but there's that. So we
Cool.
got to the point where we had more of that experience, where we're playing First Ave, but it all starts
I forgot
with
about
like,
that.
yeah, we played, we opened.
It sounds like what you're trying to say too is that it's just by doing it, by
Yeah.
reaching out, by making connections, a lot of those
Yes.
things become easier over time.
Yeah, and like being kind and talking to people and being kind to sound people and
Yes.
all those things. It's like, because then they're going to remember, and then you play, and if you do a good job, it's twofold. It's like not only were you good to work with, but then sounded good, so sprinkles matters, all of those all those things, it's like you just have to start somewhere and keep going if you want to.
I've had really good luck, especially because Onion Bun is being a math rock band. You're kind of like, you really got to make sure you find somewhere where you'll be accepted. And
I'm
I've
sure.
had really good luck. And I don't know if this was much of an option even like 10, 12 years ago, but just like directly hitting up bands in the area or finding like a band you like in an area and see where they play. That was a
Yeah.
hot tip I got from a
Yes.
buddy, and it made it so much easier to
Yes.
book. And I feel like even, like I said, like 12 years ago, you couldn't just like hit up bands that easy and be like,
Yeah.
hey, where do I play here?
For sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, for us, for so long, we just again, like, we love music, we love playing together, and for a good chunk of years it was like it wasn't, we weren't doing other things, we weren't making time for other things. And even like, I was a bartender at the Astor Cafe in the cities because it's a great music venue, so then we started doing residencies there. Like, we just really poured ourselves into connecting with the music community in the Twin Cities when we were kind of doing most of our playing. And it's so fun because then you just meet all kinds of people, and it's lovely.
I think there's kind of a lot to be said for pounding the pavement too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like now with how much you can do just online, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Like getting out there and getting in front of people and moving around. I feel like there's always kind of this, like, you can just be picked at any moment now. It's just it's weird, but I always want to see just like 1,000 more live shows, like especially here in Mankato, because I feel like we could just have so many more.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that can take the place of a live show, where it's just like, it can just cut right to your heart when it's good.
Yeah. I feel like we really tried that too over the pandemic too. It's like, I don't know if y'all did any like Zoom shows or anything, but I think a lot of that stuff happened, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, it didn't quite translate like everyone wanted it to.
I think people suggested that of us a lot during the pandemic, or we were invited to a few times, or you should. And to me, it never felt like something we could do authentically.
Yeah.
It was just, it didn't feel right. And I think I think like this art center show, when we were, for these years, where like maybe that was one of 3 shows we did that year, we really did it to give people that experience, and just to be out together on a cold February night, being in communion with music. It's really precious. And I think, like you're saying, like the pandemic kind of showed us that, where for so many months. It's like you're just not in a room with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I definitely think that like dedication to authenticity carries through. Like you can sense it. Like it was. Well, I mean, I hope this airs alongside the recordings, and then you can just watch it and feel it too, the way we did in the room, and you can be jealous that you weren't here because it was awesome.
It was raw.
good.
It was definitely raw.
Yeah. Speaking of which, y'all played a couple tunes for us today. That I don't remember the names of.
Yeah.
But could you maybe speak about that a little bit, like why you selected those ones, and just maybe a bit about it.
I think that we played a song called Animal first. I don't know, that just has a good flow to it, and I mean, I don't know when the last time we practiced together or
November.
Oh, okay. So it's been since November, which is a while. So that's just kind of a smooth way to get into playing music together.
And that song is on our album Bring Me Home, and we recorded it. It was kind of like a one-off recording that we started with like the drum beat from our Casio keyboard. And then just went and recorded it for one day, and it kind of became like this like more poppy single that we released. Do you remember that?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like we released it over the summer, and then it was sort of like gave way to the rest of that album, where we recorded the rest after that. But playing it acoustically like this, like the recording sounds totally different. I love the recording as much as I do the way we play it now. I think both are beautiful in their own way, but it's been fun to kind of take that song and perform it in this bare bones type way.
Then the second song was, I think it's called What You're Doing. I mean, that's what it's called. It's unrecorded. And I don't know. I think in settings like this, I don't know, I just like to play. We just kind of play what we're feeling, and that I think that song is like, maybe because it's unrecorded, it's like really present with me, and I'm like still should say we're still figuring it out a bit. So, but I think it's like super simple and beautiful too. So it's, and then also the tuning is the same between Animal and What You're Doing, so we can kind of
Convenient.
just
There we go.
keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then How I Love You, it's just like a classic hit. I mean, to us,
Right.
I love that
It's
song.
in
It's a
your
classic
head.
hit.
It's
It's like, yeah, I feel like if we don't play that in a show, I feel like, oh, we kind of maybe left something out, or
Yeah. It
Yeah.
flows.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like if Smash Mouth shows up and doesn't play All Star.
Exactly.
For real,
people are gonna be
right?
mad.
Yes. Like, what is this band even?
You know, at least you wrote a really pretty one. Like I can't imagine like to be the guy who wrote that like cherry pie song.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something. Like just something that you're now cursed
know.
with.
Yeah.
It's true. I was
Totally.
thinking about that, the band Nada Surf, and they wrote that song Popular. It's like I
Do
won't.
you guys know that song?
I know the
I'm
band name, not a
popular.
That
was
was
the
so long ago.
quarterback. It was like 90s. But anyway, then I was relieved later to find out they have so many beautiful songs. It was this like one hit song. I just remember thinking it was cool, like as a middle schooler. But then later in life, I went to their show and I was like, thank God for them. I just felt, because it's like any one hit wonder, like you're saying, you empathize. And so anyway.
At Onion Bun shows, they yell at us to play Powerpuff Girls because for a while, to fill our set, we learned the Powerpuff Girls theme. And now we're years past having to fill time like that. And at the end of our set, people will literally yell for us to play Powerpuff Girls of all things.
They
I
still
love
want
that.
it.
That's fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, maybe we can talk a little bit about the upcoming 11th show. I don't think we've touched on it too much. Is that just going to be you guys? Do you have an opener or anything like that?
That's a good question.
Do you want to do an opener? Well,
What?
let's all talk about it. Let's go.
We could get Anthony
Let's
on
get
speakerphone
this
right now.
sort of figured out.
That we have yet, we need to put thought into the show. We have not figured it out yet. So
Let that be exciting to listeners.
A sense of mystery.
How we usually
happen.
function is like before a show like this, we block off weeks before, so probably starting next week. We thankfully have a rehearsal space that we can go to, and we just play so much and so often for days and days leading up. So it's kind of like we're embarking on that soon. So it's good we're here.
Yeah,
And
it
we're all
is.
talking about this. Usually when we do that show, it looks like two Erickson sets. So we'll play a set and then take a break. It's a really wonderful night. Like, I don't know, there's always I think Patrick's probably supplies the wine and beer, but it's like we play, there's like 20 minutes of people kind of communing and talking, and then we play again. And it's a really like open and free space where we kind of play as long as we want at the end. And yeah, so that's kind of what to expect. We might have some, I'm not going to, I won't say
What?
it on the record. Maybe we'd have some special guests, maybe not. But we will be playing some of our new unrecorded music that night, as well as others that and I think the other thing when we do our set list now, it's often just what we enjoy playing, because at this point there's so many songs, but yeah.
Is it a ticketed show there for the night?
It is ticketed.
Okay, and
Yeah.
do we happen to know who, if any, an artist will be there? Because will there be a gallery show happening at the same time?
That's a great
I
question.
don't think there's any. That's how
Oh, that
this
was-
all
we weren't
happened. Is
sure.
There just wasn't anything on the. They're doing great over there.
Oh.
We love them.
I'm like
and
trying to
I'm sure
check.
there's something
I
on
don't
the
know.
walls.
Yeah.
Got the
I
wall.
can look.
It's gotta
Yeah,
be
I do
something.
not know. But
It's an art center.
one
Yeah.
feels like a big change is that I think there's only 50 tickets.
Yes.
Okay.
Like last time we did it, I think it was 110 or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that just feels quite a
Mhm.
bit smaller, which is fine. But
And I think too, like tickets will be available on their website. It has always sold out in the past, so only having 50 tickets feels like get your ticket. If you want to go.
Get your ticket if you want to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good. Well,
Mhm.
we got demand. We got, I guess, some supply for
Yes.
music. We're
Little
making
bit.
moves here.
Yes.
Is there anything else we'd maybe want to touch on before we move towards a wrap? Anything that we didn't chat about? Anything
Yeah.
we should know? Any other weird stories you want to share from the road?
I do have one outstanding question, which
Yeah.
is like the direct tie into the area. Like, were you just like raised right here, or generally in the Midwest? Because it's like how did we go Sprinkles to Art Center, because this is south of the cities.
That's
and
what this is all about.
Exactly.
It's Sprinkles to Art Center.
Well,
Album name.
And that was Sprinkles was in Olympia, Washington too. So it's like album name.
I love that. I mean, so we're from La Crosse, Wisconsin. That's where we grew up.
Okay.
And wait, what was your question? How we got
Yeah, I mean, like how
thinking sprinkles?
was this started only here recently, like in 2017. Were you just gigging at the art center regularly and like, hey, let's set
Oh.
up something every year?
No.
Okay.
No. We were like very much not playing in town, I
Yes.
would say.
It was a lot of just like only driving to the cities to play.
Mm.
You know,
Yes, we were playing tons in the cities. but St. Peter is a small town, and it's a great town. I love living there. And I don't know, I think it kind of just dawned on us, or maybe people in town would like hear our music, and then it'd be kind of this weird thing. It'd be like, I just see her around, and I've heard this
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe just they heard the music
Yeah.
or whatever, you know.
Because you've lived
And
in
then
St.
it'd be like,
Peter
yes,
longer.
that is us. And it's like double life. And then I think it was like, why don't we do something here?
Yeah.
Because people now know of the music, and that would be a kind of a special, cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of
It's just it's just what's at your front door.
Yeah. And I think
Yes.
too, I was just talking to a St. Peter local who is of the art scene, and I think now more than ever there's also like something so inspiring to me about just making your local community really cool and better and interesting and all these things where we could just keep passing it by and going to the cities or whatever we're doing. But I think the more rooted we became, and I moved to the area later than Bethany did. It just, if you can be a contributor to your local community in a creative way, like you guys are and like we are, then I think that to us is a priority and it's inspiring. And I think when we do release this next album, we will, reach out to outlets and do all of that promotional work. But bringing that to kind of our hometown feels so just good. And also it feels like a privilege to be able to do it, and put on this night at the Art Center feels kind of like lucky.
Well, and all like it's just one of those things. When people say that there isn't stuff to do here,
Yeah.
like that's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And first of all, like you couldn't even possibly know because I make it my whole business to know all the things to do here. And I just like I heard this music a week ago and I'm like a little salty. Like, I mean, I was at that wine cafe show too, and I didn't even connect that dot.
Yeah.
So like
You're like, this is my thing.
yeah, it's
so that's just feeling weird to you. Like, what are you feeling about that? Like
I guess what I feel about it is like lots of times people will say like, oh, you gotta like go to see things, and it's like there is really so much wealth here, and like I'm just constantly surprised. I say this all the time. It's the biggest dead horse that I beat is that like I don't think I'm ever gonna run out of things to talk about. Like right, in this area, and like
That's beautiful.
Like the scope just blows up every time. I feel like
that's cool.
That's a really beautiful thing,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's my that's my
Cool.
thing.
Well, we're glad to have y'all in the area contributing to the Art Center showcase scene and that show coming up. And thank you for playing some music for us on this show here too. That was wonderful.
Welcome.
We'll be excited to share that with our audience. So. Anything else?
Anywhere we can look
Yes.
for you, find you, in any socials, websites, your address, whatever you want to give us.
All right. 3001 290th Street, Henderson, Minnesota. That is my address, but
Mail her some chocolate.
it's okay. It's okay. We are on Instagram, that old thing, but we mostly use our names. Jenny Kaepernick. I think yours is B.A. Valentini.
It is.
I had to look that up. We also have the Ericksons Music Instagram that
We
I'm
do.
going to fire it up again.
Yeah.
So look for that. I'm going to fire it up again, maybe starting with a picture from right here.
Whoa.
Okay.
There we go.
And then other places to find us would be on iTunes or wherever you buy your music. Our albums are available. We're on Spotify. We are on Pandora. Is that people listen to Pandora? I think
listen to
we're on
Pandora.
all the streaming outlets, and also you can purchase our music on iTunes. Yeah. And if you Google the Ericksons music, just tons of live videos come up. So you can do
Heck
that
yeah.
if you're curious.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was great to see you and hear that song that I have sung before and thought it was by someone else. So
Yeah.
it's cool that I got to hear it.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.